The temperature, would you like?
I know.
72, 71, 70.
Well, that's well done. That's taken care of. Okay, so we're good. We're live. Welcome, everyone, to our Wednesday, July 13th, 2022 General Finance Committee meeting. I would acknowledge that we have all members present except for Councillor Jaglowitz, and I confirm quorum. Councillor Nishikawa, your camera is off, but you're here, so that's good. Thank you. Okay, I would confirm that the CAO clerk and members of our senior management team and staff are present here in this room. I would advise that public input on the agenda was invited at the email address of tmlpubliccomment@muskokalakes.ca. We were receiving comments from Brown Steel Docks, Reed Township Docks. Thank you for that. Public notice here, today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. There is no supplementary agenda for this meeting today. And I would ask members of committee now, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest based on our agenda today? Good, thank you. Seeing none. We'll move on to our first matter, and I'm going to item 4A, our 2021 audited financial statement discussion. I will invite and welcome Nicole White of BDO to come online. There she is. And at the same time, Mark Donaldson, our Director of Finance, to I guess maybe come on as well, be there. I'd invite Nicole to perhaps give us just a brief preamble. There you are, welcome. And then we'll give the floor to you, Mark, to let you get into some detail on that. So following along, so item 4A, Nicole White, welcome from BDO. Thank you, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. I think we're unmuted now. Should be better at this by now. Good morning, everyone. So we're substantially complete the audit now of the Township of Muskoka Lakes for the 2021 fiscal year. So we are plan to issue a clean audit opinion again this year. The audit went very smoothly this year from speaking with my staff that were involved, and we appreciate all the hard work of Marilyn and Mark to get us to this stage, and I'm sure there are a few other staff involved in getting us the evidence we requested. Just briefly, and Mark's going to go into a few more details. Basically, the audit report is my page and the rest is Mark's, but we are in a net financial asset position of 15 million at the end of the year compared to 13 last year. So an overall improvement in our net financial asset position. And when that's a positive number, that indicates sort of a financial health of the municipality. We're in a good position where our obvious financial assets exceed our financial liabilities. So that's a good place to be in. This year, as far as the operations, when you take all the revenues and all the expenses, and these are on a full accrued basis of accounting under PSAS, so not necessarily how you budget, but we did have a surplus this year of about 3.7 million compared to 2.9 last year. I don't have much more to add. There are some new standards coming into play next year, but there are new standards called asset retirement obligations. And so we are going to have to get into determining some lists and potential liabilities. And that's things like if the municipality has a bunch of old buildings that, for example, has asbestos that we know we are going to be obligated to remediate at some point, these kinds of things are going to be required to be analyzed, evaluated, potential liabilities determined in the coming year. So it is a large project that's going to be coming into play, I believe, for next year. So just to make you aware of that, there may be a change in the financial statements next year, and there'll be this new line called asset retirement obligations. We just have to see what is out there that this municipality has responsibilities for under those rules. But I will be dealing with your accounting group on those rules as we move forward. So does anyone have any audit specific questions specifically for me in regards to audit or anything else?
Committee? Okay, good. Seeing none, I'll thank you, Nicole, and I'll hand it over to Mark for his comments. Thank you. Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz, and good morning, members of committee. Nicole has provided a general overview. As she mentioned, the numbers are presented in these financial statements in accordance with Public Sector Accounting Standards, or PSAS, which is a full accrual accounting presentation that's required by the province for year-end reporting. But it is different than how the budget is presented, which is presented on a modified accrual accounting basis as defined under the Municipal Act. And the differences between these two accounting presentations are due to differences in accounting for tangible capital assets, debt retirement, and the treatment of transfers to and from discretionary reserves. And those changes are summarized in Table 1 of the report that gets you from the PSAS statement to the modified accrual accounting. In general, the surplus in these statements, as Nicole had mentioned, is $3,761,137. And on a modified accrual accounting basis, consistent with how the budget was approved, we have a surplus of $1,196,916. So Appendix 2, as Nicole had noted, is a report from BDO that just shows some of the key indicators for the income statement and the balance sheet. You'll notice on pages 68 and 70 of your package, there are some pie charts. The proportional distribution of revenue by source is largely unchanged from last year. We did have a larger increase in non-tax revenue year over year, which actually shrinks the proportion of our total revenue from the tax levy, even though the tax levy did increase slightly year over year. So it's just a reallocation, but the distribution is largely the same. Similarly, the proportional distribution of expenses by type, which is on page 70, this largely unchanged as well, with just under half of all expenses related to wages and benefits. The report before you provides a brief explanation of the factors that contribute to the updated surplus number from what was presented in February on a preliminary basis to committee, and also discusses some of the comments on significant operating variances from budget by department. And there's a short recap included on the capital spending that occurred during the year. Just a couple of comments I want to make with respect to obligatory reserves. They are detailed in note 4 of the financial statements, which you would find on pages 52 and 53 of the agenda package. These financial statements contain a change in the reporting for the building reserve. So after further consultation, staff have concluded that the building reserve should be reported as an obligatory reserve, similar to how we treat the parkland dedication and deferred development charges, because the building reserve is reported as required under Section 7 of the Building Code Act and is restricted under that legislation. So we've moved it from the discretionary category to the obligatory reserve category, and that's reported as deferred revenues in this report. And all of our financial statements and future financial reports will reflect this change. So all building reserve funds will all be shown in this way. As well, with respect to the discretionary reserves, committee will recall discussions from the 2022 budget regarding unallocated cash holdings that were in place that we had in our 2020 financial statements, and those were placed in the tax stabilization reserve at that time. Having been presented with the asset management plan for core infrastructure last month, Staff are recommending that both the unallocated cash identified during that budget discussion and this year's surplus of 1.1 million all be placed in the roads, bridges, and major infrastructure reserve to address priority projects in that area in the future. And these statements have been prepared in draft to reflect those transfers having been made to those reserves. If it is the desire of council to or committee to not make that transfer to those reserves, these statements can be changed to reflect a different direction from committee. Those are my general comments. Staff would like to thank Ms. White and her staff for a very smooth audit as well. I think it went well this year, and we're available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Committee, any comments, thoughts, observations? Quarter report. You have the recommendation in front of you on the agenda. I would read a motion if I am seeing no hands. Okay, Nicole, thank you very much for your time. And Mark, moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the 2021 audited consolidated financial statements for the Township of Muskoka Lakes be received and recommended for approval by council. And that the 2020 unallocated surplus of $4,147,424 be transferred from the tax stabilization reserve to the roads, bridges, and major infrastructure reserve. And that the 2021 operating surplus of $1,196,916 be transferred to the roads, bridges, and major infrastructure reserve. All those in favor? Good, that's unanimous. It's carried. Thank you. Committee, and again, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Nicole, for that report. I'm going to welcome then item 4B, emergency management group, Lyle Quan, regarding our fire master plan. I'm going to introduce though our fire chief, Ryan Morrell, first to, I suppose, introduce and welcome Lyle and then get into this presentation. So with that, Chief Morrell, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. Good morning, committee. Staff report, Emergency Services 2022-013 is before committee today with 3 recommendations that come from the Fire Master Plan. Briefly, that report summarizes the draft Fire Master Plan. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the lead consultant from the Emergency Management Group, Mr. Lyle Quan, to present the draft Muskoka Lakes Fire Master Plan to council, or sorry, to committee. Mr. Quan has been working in the field of emergency services for 30 years as both a fire chief and a police officer. He has 2 bachelor degrees that have allowed him to actually teach at the university level to emergency services. And I want to add that Mr. Quan's leadership and work on this plan with us was exceptional, and he was absolutely a pleasure to deal with. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Quan.
Good. Welcome, Mr. Quan.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for that intro, Chief. I hope I can live up to that. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here today and to give you a brief overview of the master plan for the Muskoka Lakes Fire Department. Now, do we have the presentation available, or should I share my screen?
Do we have the? Yeah, we have it here. Well,
oh, okay.
We'll just get that up. There you go.
Perfect. Very good. Okay, if we go to the next slide, please. With the master plan review, the team came together with 38 recommendations. Now, most of those recommendations are operational in nature, meaning that the fire chief and his staff can deal with the majority of those within their budget and resources. However, I really wanted to bring to your attention 4 key areas of the master plan that will take definitely more investigation by the fire chief, his staff, and also approval of council in the future. These 4 key areas are in relation to fire prevention, fire station and their locations, need for an aerial device, and training. Let me preface this by saying a lot of these recommendations come out of looking at industry best practices, regulations, and provincial legislation. Next slide, please. So the first one is fire prevention and public education. Now, based on the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management, this is the first line of fire safety, public safety that they want all communities to look at. Within this realm, we looked at the opportunity to be more proactive in this area. Presently, the department has one fire prevention officer full-time who is doing a great job, but there needs to be more resources in this area. A little more effort in the area of public education, working with the schools, and also dealing with the need for inspections in other areas. So to support this need, the fire chief should be collecting a little more data than we had looked at to represent time spent in the area of fire prevention and public education. And by collecting this data, the information could support the need for, it could be a part-time fire prevention officer in the beginning that would evolve to a full-time, but the data itself would support that. So at this point, we are recommending the fire chief review the need for public education, hours spent, and the need for more resources. Next slide, please. Fire stations, a key thing. So we looked at the fire stations, and presently there are 10 fire stations actually broken into some response areas within the community. What we looked at was 3 options here, and we'll go through those very briefly. But the options were, do we look at the present setup? Do we look at some new locations, or do we look at possibly the opportunity of superstations and substations? Next slide, please. Now, the fire stations themselves, when we looked at all of this, there is a definite need to look at the condition of the stations. Some of the present stations, such as the Glen Orchard station, is lacking in areas for fire safety in relation to showers, facilities like that for the firefighters. But I won't go into great detail on this. The report itself outlines some of the needs for these fire stations. So, and some of the fire stations are coming close to the end of their life. Based on interviews with the facilities manager, some of the stations are actually set up for future replacement in the near future, actually. So this also supported the idea of looking at new station locations or even possible reductions. And I don't like to use the term reduction in a negative way. It's looking at how you can continue to support the community, have good response with the resources available, and find some efficiencies. Next slide, please. So, with the possibility of rearranging, reducing, relocating of the fire stations, the 3 options that we are going to present should come with a caveat that there would be a feasibility study that would need to follow this, because we are talking about a fair investment by the community. Now, again, the map on the left side is the present station locations, and on the right side is what we call a call cluster map. This map identifies where all the calls are within the community based on 1-year or 2-year review. Now, if we could go to the next slide, please. So, when we look at the map on the left, that shows you the coverage offered by the present fire station locations. And it covers quite a bit of the community, which also means that it covers a lot of the call locations. Now, again, I mentioned 3 options. So this first option would simply be a reduction of 2 stations. And the 2 stations that we are talking about are Torrance and Glen Orchard. Now, when we look at the overlay, we see that there is some almost duplication of coverage area when we have Torrance and Glen Orchard on the left side. On the right side, in those two areas, when you remove Glen Orchard and Torrance, there still offers a great deal of coverage in those areas. So I feel that community safety and response is still there, but there is an efficiency, and knowing that Glen Orchard is one of the stations that really needs to be identified as either improvements or relocation, this might be a very good option for council to look at. Next slide, please. So another option through interviews with council, the fire chief, the CAO, and talking with the firefighters and getting input from everybody was, let's just say, taking a step back and say, what if we had no fire stations at all? What could we do? Well, one of the things that came clearly out of the interviews with everybody was that the station should be located on main thoroughfares where most of the calls occur and most of the structures, industry, housing is located also. In this situation, we have looked at 5 basic fire stations that are located as noted on the map on the right side. Again, for comparison, we show the main station setup on the left as compared to the right. There's definitely different coverage there, but as you can see in this scenario, the main thoroughfares and to each side of those areas, there's some very good coverage. Now, this would be, again, one of those costs that council would really need to look at, because each fire station, depending on the design, could be from $1.5 million up to $5 million, depending on the style. Next slide, please. And the third option here is to continue to hang on to or keep the present fire stations and reallocate them into what we'll call 3 super stations as noted in red and 3 substations as noted in the other colors. In this situation, the 3 super stations would possibly need some upgrades, but you don't have to move them. The substations would just need any upgrades that are already presently identified for them, but again, there would be no movement. And again, if you look at the coverage, there's a good level of coverage in the main thoroughfare areas and also areas around those main thoroughfares. So as opposed to the 5-station model, this one would probably cost less and would be easier to do. But any of these options are long-range options. This is not something that's going to happen within the next year or two. Next slide, please. So, fleet. One of the things that the Muskoka Lakes Fire Department does not have is an elevated or aerial device. Yes, there is the option of, through mutual aid, to get an aerial device from another community, but in my experience as a past fire chief, firefighter, is that when you need the aerial, you need it now because of such things as stopping the fire where it is, also rescue. And also let me say that there is a misconception by many people that an aerial device is only needed for buildings 4 or 5 stories high. If you look at a lot of your houses within the community, some of the rooftops are as much as 30 to 50 feet off the ground, which means that the fire department does not have the ability to get to some of these rooftops to effect a proper rescue. Now, a new aerial device is quite an expensive investment. There's no doubt about that. You're talking over $1 million. But what we are also suggesting is the idea of a used aerial device, and by not adding it to the fleet, but by looking at the fleet itself right now and what truck needs to be replaced and putting this used aerial device in that place, which means that you could get that for the same price or even less than what's budgeted for the replacement vehicle, which I think is a good investment for the community. And it's going to give the firefighters better access to possible rescues or above ground fires. Next slide, please. Finally, training itself. Now, when this study was being done, the Huntsville Training Center had announced that they were no longer offering training to any of its partner fire departments. They were closing that facility off to just themselves. So we went and looked at other opportunities for the Muskoka Lakes Fire Department, which, as you know, the Ontario Fire College in Gravenhurst has also closed its campus, so that was no longer an option. Now, the Office of the Fire Marshal has purchased 2 of these units that you see in the picture, but having access to them could be very restrictive. So we put a recommendation in there that the fire chief look at the option of purchasing one of these for the department for a couple of reasons. One is the flexibility of moving this around to the stations, and also partnering with other communities so that when Muskoka Lakes is not utilizing it, Bracebridge or what other community could utilize it. So there's a joint venture here. Now, having said that, as we finished all this report, we were made aware that Huntsville is now opening up their training center again. So that means that Muskoka Lakes has access to that. So why did we leave this recommendation in? Because it's still a future option that should be considered to give Muskoka Lakes that flexibility. And the reason that we say that is when you have your firefighters at Huntsville or whatever location training, you don't have them in your community. Whereas if you have this training unit in your community, when the firefighters are training, they're available for calls. So there is a definite advantage there. Next slide, please. So that really gives you that high-level overview of the key 4 areas that we've seen as recommending investment into the future. Yes, they are some big ticket items, but that's why we wanted to focus on those with the committee today. Basically, as a final wrap up, we just wanted to say that we appreciate everyone's input. We appreciate how honest and open everyone was to answer our questions. There's no doubt in our mind that the Muskoka Lake Fire Department is made up of very dedicated personnel that care about their community, and we'd like to thank everyone for helping us in the development of this master plan. Final slide, please. So the next steps: review the recommendations that have been put forth in the master plan, look at that feasibility study with the 3 options, document and implement the completion of the recommendations within the plan. As I say, there's 38 recommendations, and we did speak with the fire chief about the value of keeping track of what recommendations have been completed and how it has improved the fire department itself, and continue to track the improvements based on such things as response times, staff training, retention, and improvements in fire prevention, public education, and training. So thank you very much again. That concludes my presentation. It was a high-level presentation, but hopefully I was able to cover the key points for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lyle. Thank you very much for all your involvement and for leading us down this path. I'm going to ask the Fire Chief, Brian Morrell, if he would make this comment here.
Thank you through you, Chair Zavitz. I just want to thank Mr. Quan for his insight on the plan as it stands. I just want to draw committee's attention back to the report that asks committee to approve the plan to direct staff to proceed with more studies, including a feasibility study on the station options, and that I be directed by committee and through council after the fact to prepare a report on how the recommendations will be achieved. That's what is in the report that is before you, and I now stand for questions.
Good, thank you. Committee, questions of the chief? There's Councillor Bridgman, go ahead.
Thank you,
Kelly?
Chair Zavitz. Chief Murrell, I mean, that's a great report. Thank you very much. I like the look at the 3 options. My one question is really on the liability side. Now that we have identified no aerial device, et cetera, if we don't start to move on getting one, are we opening ourselves up to possible litigation? Because if we are, Chief Murrell, does it make sense to start to move on that at this point? That's my question.
Good question. Chief?
I think from my perspective, historically, we haven't required an elevated device, but we are at what I would call a crossroads as council makes more decisions about approving larger buildings, taller buildings. We obviously need to highlight the risk. At this point, it is a low chance of an occurrence, and we do have an arrangement with our partnerships. However, as we look at more buildings being built in Muskoka Lakes, as Mr. Quan alluded to, rooftops now are quite higher, and I can tell you that from a rehab position when it comes to firefighters fighting a fire, it's nice to have an elevated device for those in-between moments when we're changing out crews to continue to flow water from above. I've owned an elevated device before. I'm well aware of the maintenance requirements of having one, and I'm well aware of the kind of fit that we could have for our community. At this point, I don't see liability. However, if we have one of those facilities that has a tall building and they do not maintain their fire protection measures, we will be heavy-handed in terms of enforcement, ensuring that they have those, because our elevated buildings today, our tall buildings have sprinklers. If they were to not maintain those, obviously then we want to get into an arrangement where we have an elevated device at a faster rate. Thank you for that question.
Good, and thank you, Bridgman. Councillor Bridgman, you're good with that. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, excellent report. I have just 2 questions. One about the same issue, the aerial device. Does it require any special licensing or training? I'm sure it requires training to operate the device, but in terms of driving the thing, is it, I mean, it's a kind of a clunky thing, but our current staff could get retrained and licensed to drive it?
Yeah, so absolutely. Through you, Chair Zavitz, to all of committee, yes, an aerial device does require a little bit of training. Usually that training is provided by the manufacturer of the device when you buy a new device. However, there are training manuals that we would go through. I believe the total amount of hours we'd want to put somebody on the device is 25 hours. So it does require an extensive amount of training. I can tell you from firsthand experiences, they're great for parades and they're horrible when they're damaged. They do when they have any kind of damage, it requires a lot of expertise to take a look at an aerial device. I'm well aware of the precautions that we need to take with volunteers operating a large apparatus, especially on very skinny access roads. So that would be something that we would focus on very heavily if council should choose to go down the road of having an aerial device.
Councillor Kelly, you had a second question?
Yeah, the second question, I'm intrigued by the live training program possibility. I'm really not sure what I'm looking at in the picture. It looks like a caboose on a train, but is that thing robust enough that we could actually use it for our own training purposes and lease it out or offer training on our site and in the off season fill a few hotels with people who are in here getting trained? Or is it really just kind of one and done, use it and I don't know. I don't know whether that's something that you could use on an ongoing constant basis, or you'd have to upgrade to something more sophisticated. But with the college closing in Gravenhurst, is there an opportunity for us to look at that?
Chief?
Wow, great question. Thank you for that question through you, Chair Zavitz. Yeah, yes and yes. However, everybody in the province, all 440 municipalities are looking at regional training centers. That's the preferred method moving forward from the Ontario Fire Marshal. going back to your first question, is the unit robust enough? Yes, they're constructed. Right now, the primary model that you see there is from Draeger. Draeger is one of the leaders as it comes to this fire training evolutions, and they steal a lot of their knowledge from Sweden and some of the European ways of putting out fires. I can tell you, I have the training that you speak of. It takes about 5 days. That's a 5-day course that you have to send somebody away so they become a live fire instructor. So we would need 2 or 3 of those people in-house. Either way you slice it, you're absolutely right, Councillor, when you suggest, the Councillor's right, when he suggests that there is an opportunity for a cottage industry here, pardon the pun, and we have the most beautiful area in Ontario to do it. And we do even have an open gravel pit that could easily facilitate it. There are other things that come into play though. You have smoke concerns, you have neighbors constantly calling, thinking something's on fire. So there's a lot of preamble community consultation that needs to occur when you go down that road, but it is absolutely something that could be a viable business opportunity because everybody in Ontario that is a firefighter should see live fire annually. We know this.
Good.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, good. Okay, Councillor Hayes, then the mayor, then Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Through you, I have a few comments. On page 108 of our agenda, or 29 of the report, it refers, in a paragraph on the right-hand side, it refers to figure 6. I believe that should be figure 5 that it refers to. There's also no mention of the railway tracks in Torrance. And I will tell you that quite often I've been held up there for up to 10 minutes, sometimes more. It happens quite frequently, day and night. So that should be a consideration in any access. There is mention of the agreements with other fire stations, but there's no actual map of them. And if you saw what the agreement with Gravenhurst was, it covers quite a bit of area. And we would, if we went to lesser stations, I would be more comfortable dropping those agreements. So I think that has to be visual in the report. I have reservations about getting an aerial truck, especially a used one, because we know that under our agreement, every 20 years, we have to replace vehicles. So that would mean that we would be obliged to purchase a brand new aerial truck in however many years it had left as a used vehicle. And I really don't feel that I can authorize that at this time. I would also ask that the report be changed from approved to received, because there are a lot of budget items in there, including full-time positions and purchases. And I think the 2023 budget items should stand on their own, and they should be discussed in 2023 by the new council. And I don't feel that we should be obliging the new council to recommendations that we have made for budget in 2023. And those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Duly noted. Mayor Harding.
Thank you very much. Interesting. Councillor Hayes brought up a couple of comments. As we've looked at this, and Mr. Quan, thank you very much for your openness to look at different alternatives and different numbers of fire stations. And one of the things that you did in one of them, you had a call cluster map currently. My question is, as you go through the new station models, it'd be interesting to see the outliers out of those station models and what wouldn't have been captured. So what we're missing, I mean, I see what we get, but it'd be interesting to highlight what's missing by each of those station models. I fully agree that we need a feasibility study before any recommendations are adopted in any of those station model changes. A couple of comments or questions that I wonder, have we looked at? And Councillor Hayes brought up a 20-year life cycle of our apparatus from an insurance purpose that traditionally right now we're replacing everything at 20 years. The issue we face is an average apparatus for us receives about 2,000 kilometers a year. So 20 years from now, it's only got 40,000 kilometers on it. In all sense and purpose, most of us are driving vehicles with twice that amount of kilometers on it or more, and still are everyday drivers. They still work. Where do we do an analysis, and how does it come to a true fleet management? Should we be changing it 20 years? What happens if we extend to 25 years? I remember doing a note that even the simple amortization of our entire fleet from 20 years to 25 years based on capital cost of our equipment, we can save $400,000 a year if we can extend them to 25 years. So really like to understand that as we go forward. And is that part of this, or is that a 2.0 version of the master fire plan to understand our fleet management, which would come back to, can we buy a used aerial truck that might put 1,000 kilometers on it a year versus having to buy a new one? And is it okay to have it at 30 years or 40 years in our fleet because it still operates appropriately? The other thing, and I want to put this bug in everybody's ear, and Chief Morrell, I believe you and I have had a conversation about this. As we look at live fire training and all of these kinds of opportunities, even as we look at aerial trucks and we have agreements with our neighboring municipalities, we know the District of Muskoka has police and EMS service. The trilogy of that emergency service is fire. Should we not be lobbying the district to buy a fire training apparatus like this and put it on a district levy? Should we not be lobbying the district to buy a couple of aerial trucks to be able to service the municipalities, that we don't have to lower that tax burden down? And I really want to look at some of those kind of, I'll call it shared model services. I know it's not specifically in this report, but I guess the real question is, did we look at any of those kind of options? The final question is to Chief Morrell, and I'm not sure whether this is possible. So Councillor Hayes brought this up, and it makes total sense that as soon as a fire call goes out, if we know that there is a possibility of our apparatus and our firefighters having to cross rail lines, could we not implement a policy where we contact CNCP and those trains are stopped for 10 minutes for our apparatus to get across the train tracks in advance? And if that's not possible right now, then we need to be talking to the province to put in place that kind of a protocol. You know, I believe that fire and EMS services in the GTA have special things in their trucks that can turn the stoplights green so that they're not stuck behind traffic. I think of the same kind of a model regarding our train tracks, and would be very interesting to investigate that. And if it doesn't exist today, let's put in place that service, because we Muskoka Lakes are not the only people with train tracks that run across our roads that fire service would be impacted by. So I leave that with Chief Morrell as to how we might attack that problem. But I think it's a very, very valid concern, especially as we look at different station models. Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. Chief Morrell, I'll give you an opportunity to reply to that grab bag of suggestions.
Historically, in my 3 years of being here, we've only seen about 4 times where the train has delayed our response. But that said, and I can also point to my experience in Northern Ontario. I interacted quite a bit with Winnipeg. The reason that Winnipeg has so many fire stations is because of this issue. I could tell you that we can have the conversation with the railway. The railway is pretty sticky about, if they were there before you had a town, they've got a lot more rights than you think. And I think that's the problem in Winnipeg. And I see Councillor Kelly nodding, so I'm pretty sure he knows his law on that. Historically, Hudson Bay Company, and leading back into time, if the railway was there before your town, they have a lot more rights on going through your town. And it becomes problematic when you ask them to stop the line. We do ask them to stop the line, and I'll tell you, they've been pretty receptive when we've had impacts to train bridges and incidents. We actually recently just had an incident with an ATV that got into a little bit of a motor vehicle collision there near Torrance. But I just wanted to highlight for you, historically, I haven't seen that happen enough. We do have good contacts with CN Rail, but we definitely can lobby at a higher level and see if that's something we could do. I'm always open to making things better. And I do agree with you. We have an Opticon on one of our vehicles, ironically, and we only have one light. And oddly enough, we don't have the receptor on that light to receive the signal from the Opticon. So we are going to be having more conversations with the district moving forward. It's on our hit list. If council will recall, it's in the community risk assessment to have conversations with the district about traffic management and how that can get better. As as a councillor, or sorry, as the mayor noted, in the district, as we analyzed things, I know the district model of fire service is a great idea. That was not an ask in our current ask of this consultant, and mainly because it wasn't really in our purview to start to go down that road. I don't disagree that there are shared resources that we definitely could share amongst ourselves and municipalities, and I would love to see an opportunity where another level of government pays for the resources that we use. So I'd be more than willing to look at that approach. So thank you for that opportunity, and thank you for the opportunity to respond to that question.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Through you to Chief Morrell. So interesting when I heard the train situation and we could stop the trains, that would be assuming that all the trucks are coming all at the same time. And I've, been aware of when a truck arrives half an hour later. There also, it doesn't, in the big scheme of things, it doesn't make sense that we would stop the trains once and then have, like if we were to use the Torrance Barrens fire, they were coming all day. There was trucks all the time. So I don't know that we could use that particular conversation with CN to stop rail traffic. My concern is, though, in statements and without the public being able to go through all of the presentations and everything, is that I would like to see that we could show people on Summit Drive and 9 Mile and other situations that we have, that if for instance, the Torrance Hall was going to be slated to close or something like that, adding, and I would say it's more than 5 minutes added to the call to come from Walker's Point, even that much further to come from Bala. And the big concern, of course, in Bala is the train, but also let's talk about how many train tracks you have to cross too, right? Like, so there's a whole different animal in the 9 Mile area. And often I would say, I'm trying to find the right words, but we tend to not respect that we have people that live in that area and their needs, because there's a lot. Certainly I was at 2 meetings that I did not, expect to have to be at. And again, it was some of those safety issues that they feel are not being recognized by our township. So again, we have some of these very difficult areas to get to. And I would just be concerned that I don't even know what we're trying to do, quite honestly. I don't see that we're saving money on it, like really. In the scheme of things, yes, we'll buy more things, we'll hire more staff and things. But I don't think that those folks would understand that at all, the way the presentation is, and future conversations we've had. We've had these same conversations before, and it just concerns me. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Well, there are 138 recommendations in there, so there's a lot to talk about. And I just want to draw out before we get to Councillor Edwards that this is, I don't want to qualify this, but it is rather high level. What we're being asked today is to essentially accept and approve the draft, and it is draft, master plan in that regard, and to allocate some future funding perspectives, if you will, to down that road. So I think what we're doing is we're really handing to Chief Morrell the first of many, many boxes to check before this thing gets too far down the road. I don't even want to talk about closing Torrance today. I won't talk about it today. And Glen Orchard, et cetera. I think that's way down that road. It's no different than our arenas and other things. So I'm not going to soapbox, but this is a big discussion for a long period of time with some good, smart people that know what they're doing. So I would ask that Councillor Edwards go ahead and provide commentary.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Zavitz. I'm in agreement with Councillor Hayes. I think we should receive this, not and that, so that we can get working on it, but not and not approve it. There's too many questions still left unanswered on this. I look at page 126, item 15, where 4 firefighters arriving on the scene within 4 minutes of travel time, or 16 firefighters arriving at the scene within 8 minutes. If we start closing stations, maybe they're not going to get there in time in that. And then I look at page 127, and they shouldn't be using their personal vehicles. So that means they've got to go to a fire station, drop it off, get in a fire truck, then get to the fire, which puts time up on it. And you know, it's great. This report is fantastic because it makes us think of everything, not just one thing. So I think they're really to be commended on it. But like I say, as far as accepting it this time, I think we should receive it and then we can work on it. And another thing that wasn't mentioned in there is if we start closing stations, the response time is one thing, insurance is another, because homeowners insurance could skyrocket. So we have to look at everything. So I would say we should just receive it at this time. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. And we're looking into that, the wording of that right now. Councillor Mazan, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. Just 2 questions. The first is confirming that as far as the next budget, really the one item in here that I'm seeing would be the feasibility study. Is that correct? So there's no other decisions being made on the next budget. Thank you. The second thing is just clarity. I was re-looking at the report on the agreements and the advocacy with the district or the lobbying. I just wanted clarity on that. Is that an opportunity? I see that revisiting our current agreements with them, but to what the mayor's questions were, is there an opportunity within this plan or to be exploring those types of options further? Thank you.
Good. Chief, you want to respond to that?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Zavitz, to the councillor and to
We
the
get you to
mayors.
turn your volume up. Sorry. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Here, I can actually.
Better, but if you don't mind. Yeah, that's good. Thanks.
Okay. To the councillor and to the mayor's question, advocacy with the district, I believe that would have to happen. We definitely could explore that through the Muskoka area fire chiefs and see if we collectively would want to bring that to our individual councils and then have it come from the ground up. Or it could be an opportunity that the district could present coming down. I'm not familiar with how the political mechanics of that would actually work. I'm always welcome to, this is my mantra, the way that I've always operated, providing the best possible service for the person that called 911. If we get to a place that provides better service for the person that called 911, I'm all for that. And I think that that's always the mantra that I bring to council. It's to improve the service that we're trying to provide today. It wasn't something that we analyzed, the advocacy with the district. So to the councillor's question, some of the other agreements we have at the district relate to how we interact with their roads department, how we interact with the agreement with communications, and the agreement with Muskoka Paramedic Services. That's our district involvement as it stands right now. But this could be something that we could bring to the district as an opportunity. Typically, just for council's information or for committee's information, typically when you go down that road, there's other elements that play in when you're looking at turning something into a district service. Control only goes to that district level. So that tends to be a reason that a lot of lower tiers do not want to go that route. So I just want to make sure that that's out in the open early on. But it definitely would be something that I could see being an advantage in terms of cost savings and resource sharing. I'd be open to it.
Okay, good.
Just a quick supplemental, and I think coming off the experience with the recreational master plan, one of our noted priorities was the importance of public-private partnerships. And just as I was listening today and thinking about this, it just seems, without coming up with a decision, just identifying the importance of partnerships at different levels. And again, I know this is a different world in emergency services, but if it's not even if it's not identified as being a priority or a portion of this plan, I think that is a possible opportunity. So thank you.
Okay, good. I see the chief's writing some notes there. Thank you for that commentary. I would ask committee at this point in time, we've had some requests here to perhaps change the word approved in that first line of the resolution from approved to received. I guess my only thought on that before I would ask your thoughts on that is the softening of the word approve, which we all know what approve means. I'm wondering what that means. I might look to the clerk for a sense of direction on that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a question of the strength of the language. Approved is a bit stronger. If you want to accept or receive, it's a bit less strong, but it's up to the consensus of committee.
Good, thank you. I suppose my thought would be, does that lessen the impetus going forward to this report? We're accepting the report, giving our chief and his group guidance. Do we water down our guidance by changing it to receiving means set a solid direction forward? So committee, I guess I would look to you. The mayor's got a comment before I'll ask you guys that.
Thank you very much, Chair Zavitz. I actually believe the appropriate word is receive. We're not agreeing to all 138 at this particular time. There are going to be some controversial ones in there, and I think we can receive this, and we're going to work our way through 138. The only thing we would agree to today is a feasibility study on understanding, and we're going to start to tick off some boxes. This is not going to be accomplished in 3 months or 6 months. There's going to be lots of changes. The idea of a master fire plan to me is basically, and as Chief Morrell said, improve the response at 911, make sure that our residents are better served. And there's recommendations in here that we're going to have to work our way through. I don't approve all of them today, so I can't approve all of them, but I can certainly receive these as recommendations.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that, sir. Mr. Roberts, Councillor Roberts, go ahead, then we'll call the vote.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And through you, I agree with the that we should approve the feasibility study that was suggested in 2014 that we look at both Torrance and Glen Orchard. So I think that should be in the resolution that we do proceed on that one as soon as we can. It's been there for almost 8 years that we should be doing that. So I think we should do that. And other than that, I'm okay with receive. But as you know, my pet peeve with these master plans is they're not master plans. They are strategic plans. And at the will and the affordability of council is how they get implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read this then based on our commentary. Now, before I do that, I suppose I should look to committee. Is committee generally approving or accepting of the word received in lieu of approved? If I see there you go. Good. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, then thanks for that. Moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that the draft fire master plan for the Township of Muskoka Lakes attached as Appendix 1 to Staff Report ES-2022-013 be received, and that requisite funds be included in the 2023 capital budget in order to proceed with a feasibility study designed to evaluate the station location options as set out in Fire Master Plan for the Township of Muskoka Lakes, attached as Appendix 1 to Staff Report ES 2022-013. And that the Fire Chief report back with a report on how the continuous improvement initiatives identified in the Fire Master Plan for the Township of Muskoka Lakes, attached as Appendix 1 to Staff Report ES 2022-013 will be achieved. All those in favor? That's carried. So thank you, committee. Thank you, Chief. And thank you, Lyle. Appreciate it, sir. Will we be
Thank
seeing,
you.
I wanted a question, will we be seeing Mr. Quan again? Chief Morel, is that a,
We definitely could bring the consultant back for when we bring this to council. I believe now it just goes to council for council to take a look at for next month.
yeah. Well, then a big thank you, Mr. Quan, for all your help. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, cheers.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chief Morel. Okay, item 4C on our agenda, it's 10 o'clock. Do we want to take a 10-minute break, or do we want to, you know what, we've been having these people wait since 9:30. How about we just do one more? We'll do item 4C. Ryan Elby from the District of Muskoka regarding district license of occupation for Coop Wicked Chicken Restaurant in Port Carling. Is we'll get, we're gonna, sorry, so yeah, so this is part of item 8B. So Corey Moore, my friend, you're here. There he is. Okay, so item 8B. I don't know, Corey, if you'd like the floor while we find Ryan. If you want to go ahead and then do a preamble for a quick, go ahead. Sir, you got the floor.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Zavitz. I can definitely introduce the report and provide kind of an overview of the details the District of Muskoka is looking for today. Staff at the Township, we received a notice from the district that they had received a license of occupation request to occupy 2 public parking spaces in downtown Port Carling to expand a patio at the Coop Wicked Chicken restaurant, and district staff is looking for comment from the Township of Muskoka Lakes before proceeding with either approval or not approval of the application itself. I believe Ryan Elby from the district is here today to help speak to the application and answer any questions. We also invited the applicant themselves to attend. Just to provide an overview of the details, staff have reviewed the application internally, and the 2 biggest concerns that we've highlighted are pedestrian safety in that area in particular. It's a little bit tricky as there is no sidewalk on that side of Highway 118, and the patio itself would be directing pedestrian traffic closer to the highway itself and ongoing traffic. The second issue was just the reduction in public parking spaces in general. That area of town in particular has limited public parking, and staff are aware that any reduction in parking spaces in the area could potentially cause some concerns for surrounding businesses in that area as well. That make sure that those parking spaces are there to help them with their business ventures. So with that, Chair, I hope that maybe provides a good introduction, and if Ryan Elby from the district's here to help answer any questions, I'm also available as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, Ryan is not in attendance, so we'll go ahead with a question or 2. I think everyone can see the recommendation in the agenda is for the council to not support the approval of this based on a lot of criteria that they've provided in the report. So Councillor Kelly, then Councillor Nishikawa, then I'll probably just call the vote.
Thank you, and through you. One thing that occurs to me, I appreciate the report. I read it a couple of days ago, and I thought I had a copy. I don't have it in front of me, but is there any indication that the applicant has approached the adjacent landowner that has a parking lot that might be willing to give up 2 spaces from private property, as opposed to taking 2 spaces which are public property and much more, much closer to the side of the road?
Corey?
Through you, Chair, I'm not aware if those discussions have taken place, Councillor Kelly. It could be something that we pass along to the district and the applicant themselves as a possible solution. I believe the only thing we may want to include with that is just notice regarding the amount of parking spaces and making sure they meet those requirements, and whether a cash in lieu of parking application would be required. But that can certainly be something staff can pass along so that they are aware of those implications.
Okay, Councillor Nishikawa. Then the
Thank
mayor.
you. I would be remiss if I did not, again, voice my concern about accessibility through our municipality. You know, just the suggestion that it's even been written down on paper that we've been forcing people into the middle of the highway with a wheelchair or any type of apparatus that they need to get around really concerns me. And again, I'm going to keep shouting it loud because we are still not doing anything about this situation, and it's growing in our township for sure. But we can't just keep putting our heads in the sand. I do have a little bit of a question though, because did we expand or did we extend using sidewalks and primarily sidewalks? I know that we allowed things because of COVID for people to expand patios, but it appears now that some have taken liberty with that. I know we have a situation in Bala right now that literally forces people to walk on their sidewalk through a store, so that concerns me. And I'm not even sure what our policy is on these things any longer. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Harding.
Sorry, thank you. I was just pulling up a map. You know, I do recall it was probably 10 years ago now, we actually closed one of those parking spaces on the way into LCBO. We put a large rock or two in there because of sight lines. We're now allowing cars to park there, so obviously that problem doesn't exist anymore. But I wonder if the applicant is on the line, or if they're tuned into this in particular, is there an opportunity to expand the patio on the grassy area between LCBO parking lot, sort of what I call to the southeast of their current patio? You could probably get a couple more, 3 or 4 more tables in that particular area without affecting parking, either in Steamboat Bay or in the LCBO parking lot. I know our agenda package doesn't show that, and as I say, I was just pulling up some zoning maps and some aerial photos. There is some area, there's a fire hydrant in there. We know we've had some issues with that, but sort of towards the water side of the fire hydrant between some trees, there might be an opportunity to expand the patio, and I'm just not sure that the applicants looked at that.
Okay, thank you. So is the applicant's here? No, so no one's here. Okay, so listen, what I'm going to suggest here is that the question for us was not to ponder a solution to a business person's problem, and parking is everyone's problem, and certainly in Port Carling. It's incredible. So the fact is that we have a staff recommendation here to not support this request. I would read it, except I'll listen to Councillor Nishikawa first. Go ahead, Ruth.
Thank you. I suppose I should have been more specific to you if I could actually have my concern or question about what is our practice right now with outdoor patios and if I just use the word encroachment onto our sidewalks and things. Is there any comment from the
David
bylaw officer?
Okay, so good point. And thanks for coming back with that. David, I believe you're here instead of either Rob Kennedy, our bylaw, or David, one of the two of you. This is a more general question, of course, but certainly speaks to COVID and where we are right now. So either one, please. David, welcome.
Welcome, committee. Good morning. Through you, the chair. Yes, there was previously a COVID, we call it patio program, which would allow patios to be exempt from parking requirements. And I believe that extended for this current year and would expire at the end of the year, but that would not apply to patios on municipal property. They would still need appropriate approvals to do so. However, on private land, patios could be expanded, and council delegated to staff the ability to enter into cash in lieu of parking agreements at a nominal rate. again, for just a period of time during COVID. Hope that helps clarify.
Councilor Nishikawa? Good. Okay, thank you. Okay, David, thanks for that. So I'll read this resolution, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Bridgman. Be it resolved that the District of Muskoka staff be advised that the Township of Muskoka Lakes Council does not support the approval of the license of occupation application submitted by the Coop Wicked Chicken Restaurant. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you, committee. Okay, let's take a break for just a few moments. Let's say be back at 10:20 if we could, and we'll have a delegation from Stu Manchi and Warren Mayhew as it relates to Shake the Lake. Thank you for your patience, gentlemen. Cheers. Okay, committee, welcome back. It's 10:20 and we're all rested and relaxed now. So I'm going to move on to our next agenda item, which is item 4D. Welcoming, hopefully the gentlemen are here, welcoming Stu Manchi and Warren Mayhew to, regarding item 8B, Shake the Lake. And I'll refer, while we get those gentlemen on. There they are. Hey, guys, welcome. Welcome. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, guys, before we get you on here, we're going to let Corey Moore, our Economic Development Officer, sort of do a little bit of a preface, set the table for you, and then we'll get you guys on this call. So go ahead, Corey.
Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Zavitz, and through you. I won't steal any of their thunder on the plans for Shake the Lake, but I know Stu and Warren intend on providing committee an update on the event last year and some of the plans for this year. I'll just take some time to highlight the three main requests in front of committee today. The first being a temporary exemption to the noise bylaw from 11 p.m. to midnight. The second is designating the event as municipally significant. And this is a requirement of the AGCO for the event to get their liquor license. The final item is use of some township supplies for the event, in that of picnic tables, garbage cans, and road barricades. And this one is of particular interest to staff as well. In the past, we've supplied these items to the Ballot Cranberry Festival, but that has typically been the only event that we do so. And providing it to additional events that occur throughout the year could also be another way that we support local event development. I know we've done a lot of work over the past year in supporting events. Our economic development strategy recognizes event development as a top priority. And I know for events occurring on township property, we now have the special event permit to help get approvals through faster, some delegated authorities to staff. We also have a new 3-day vendor license specifically for events. So I think this is another step that staff would see in us being able to support local events. We have these supplies available, and should the applicants be willing to enter into a simple agreement and pick up and drop off the supplies themselves, we don't see any issues. Obviously, we would recommend that this occur on a cost recovery basis, that be included in the agreement. So I think it's a good initiative, and one that we'd like to see moving forward more often as well. So
thank you for that. And just again, thank you, Corey. And pre that, I will draw attention. The committee would not know until I tell you this, that we've amended the first part of the resolution to include the use of TML picnic tables, garbage cans, and road barriers included in the staff report. So just so you know, that's what I would be reading as this thing comes forward. So gentlemen, without any further ado, we'll let you show us your enthusiasm for this wonderful event in Bala, and go ahead. You have the floor.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much, Councillor. And we just want to say a big thank you again for your original support getting us off the ground last year. As you said, we were able to execute a safe and well-attended, even though it was a little lighter attendance than we'd hoped last year. We certainly were able to put together a memorable event for everyone that attended. And we hope to do a better job this year in terms of getting people to show up, having a greater attendance. But in the long run, we hope to develop a long-term relationship with the township and you guys, and maintain this sort of, safe and transparent process moving forward. For this year, the days have been shortened from 5 to 3. I feel like it's a more manageable time frame for our staff and everyone attending. And we feel that, asking for these few considerations, are sort of within our, is something, it's not unrealistic. So yeah, in terms of the noise bylaw, I don't know if that's what we should address first. we feel that midnight would be a perfect way to allow our attendees to have that little bit of an extra time, but not push it into the sort of 1 a.m., 2 a.m. mark where, it can get a little hectic after those hours. We do have a production team that would actually ensure us that everything automatically shuts off. So there's no chance of it going past that time at 11:58. And they have it pre-programmed in the control board where it actually just shuts off. So there's no risk of going past that point. Other than that,
picnic tables, garbage cans, barricades. I wasn't sure last year when we were addressing you, we didn't realize that you guys had those available. I know you don't often give them out to events, but during COVID, it was nice, families could sit together. They don't have to stand and mingle. It allows an older crowd a place to sit. Otherwise, we are also going to go forward and try and build a few. Wise Millers has offered some support to let us build a couple, give us materials to build a couple. And it's just great to have seating, especially on a hot day, and allows every type of crowd to sit there and have their own space away from the crowds. And maintain
Okay, I wonder if I could clarify with Corey. I did hear you make a statement, Corey, in your initial preamble that you use the words cost recovery. Could you help me understand what that means?
Sure, through you, Chair. Just in case there's any damages to any of the supplies in terms of replacement. So.
Okay, good. So we would be providing those no charge, given that they're returned in their like condition.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you, guys. That's it? I think you're.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any questions,
okay, sure. Let's go.
We have the same security team that we had last year that you guys hired for the Cranberry Fest hired as well. They're very professional, as well as a couple local security that help out at the Kitabala as well, that are very familiar with the area.
Our big concern, we want to maintain a safe and inclusive environment for everybody. So, one of the real markers of our company is to create memorable events that allow people to sort of, feel safe. And it's really focused on sort of the overall experience and making sure that everyone, is safe and taken care of. Yeah.
Good. So our goals are aligned. Thanks for that.
Yes.
Good mission, guys. Okay. So Councillor Bridgman has a comment or question of you, and then Councillor Hayes. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair Zavitz. Great, gentlemen, and I'm glad it was successful last year and more successful this year. And I'm glad to see you've reduced it to 3 days, just because the neighbors, 3 days, I think you can argue 5 days is a little harder on that noise stuff. But my question actually is, have you identified yet which charities you would like to support this year? I'm just curious more than anything.
In terms of the charitable aspect?
Yep. Yes.
Yes. So last year we were able to donate a little over 20,000 to the Gord Downey Fund
at Sunnybrook.
This year we're hoping to also include the Downey Wenjack Fund, which is, so we're going to do the Sunnybrook Fund as well again
as number one,
as our first priority. It's just to tie in the cancer awareness from last year, and then we are also hoping to build out some local initiatives in terms of music contributions to some different public schools in the area. That's something we're just fleshing out right now and seeing if there's some instrument providers or what have you. But we are looking to do a local, like a local sponsorship initiative to do with music in some way and providing some music support for kids. I have kids, school-age kids. Yeah. And then the Legion as well. Is going to help us with that. That's not through us. No, that's the Legion's 50/50. So yeah, we are hoping to incorporate a few local initiatives around music, and then continue with our cancer fundraising as well. So there will be a charitable a part of that with our silent auction and stuff.
Cool.
Terrific. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bridgman. Okay, Councillor Hayes, go ahead. Then the mayor.
Thank you. And through you, my question is to Corey. The picnic tables and garbage cans, do we have a stock of them somewhere? where we can lend them out, or are these coming from our community centers and our parks?
Through you, Chair Zavitz, we have a stock of some additional ones available. I think over the years, the Parks Department, as they replace some of the ones in the parks with newer ones, we keep the old ones for these types of initiatives. So similar to the ones out on Lock Street currently, the pedestrian area, those are our additional stock.
Okay, Councillor Hayes, good, thumbs up, there you go. Okay, Mayor Harding, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And obviously a great event last year and certainly supportive of this moving forward. I have heard some concerns from neighbors in the area regarding the direction of the stage. And I'm sure you've heard the same, or some people I know have heard the stage, that the stage pointed south may impact more neighbors versus north. I understand why it's trying to keep the people in more of a compound area on the lake. Was there ever consideration to potentially redirecting that to the north, just as a question? And I'm sure it probably was. But the other question is maybe to Corey. Last year, do we allow the noise exemption bylaw to go from 11 to 12 every day? And I wonder, and as a question afterwards, maybe to organizers in particular, if we can't readjust the stage, is there a slight opportunity, maybe Friday nights 11 p.m. and we extend it a little bit later on Saturday night to 12 p.m., having to go both nights to push a little bit? You know, if Saturday is going to be the bigger night, which I'm assuming it probably will be, maybe that's really the rationale, the opportunity. So Corey, what were the noise bylaws last year? And then I'll turn to the organizers for stage alignment and any potential opportunities to adjust timing.
Through you, Chair, last year they didn't actually request any noise exemptions. They followed within our existing bylaw. And I believe this year the request would be for all 3 days. So I may have to turn it over to Hindsight Productions to determine if a single day versus all 3 days is an option for them.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Corey. We would be open to potentially having Friday be over at 11 p.m. in terms of making sure that everyone's happy in the community and our surrounding neighbors. Saturday and Sunday we would really try and push for that 12 o'clock exemption, because it is our larger lineups. There are we have a long day of music, and so because the way that it splits with setup and tear down between acts, we would really hope to push it to 12 on the Saturday and the Sunday. Okay. But on Friday, we have less of a schedule conflict in terms of tight timeline. So if it came down to making a concession and making sort of everyone happy, if Friday was 11 and then we were able to request Saturday and Sunday be pushed to 12, that would be something we would that would be fine.
How about the stage orientation that Mary's mentioned?
Unfortunately, the stage setup, because of the sort of infrastructure that we've put in place there, it is something we could potentially look at, but I really think we're going to face it southeast. It would be facing southeast again, as well, in the same place as last year. Just the reason for that is, like you said, we do sort of have the event map and spacing where people enter. There are the ticket booths and the sort of area as you walk through, and then you end up at the stage at the end of the property there. Yeah,
it might create sort of a bottleneck for like even just emergency
security.
Access, getting in and out. Access to the far end would be harder for emergency vehicles. The road access is there. Issues on the other side of a large crowd could be.
You'd also have a crowd of people right where you have to walk through, and then you'd have to loop around to get in. And that would, like you said, because we have a narrow, we have a narrow event space. It's not like an open field. It's sort of like one long channel. It would create safety issues in our mind.
I'll give the mayor a supplemental, gentlemen, on that.
Thank you. And I understand the stage and assume that was the answer, so I'm okay with that. I guess I was a little bit, I appreciate the noise exemption was blanketed for 3 days. I didn't necessarily anticipate a Sunday evening, not of a holiday weekend, going till midnight. And for those people who live or work in the area, to be potentially kept awake on a Friday, Saturday, and now Sunday, trying to go into a regular work week. It's not a holiday weekend. If it was, I might be a little more considering. I'm okay with Saturday night, but I'm really struggling, especially with a Sunday night more than anything. That it's kind of a Sunday night calm, return to peace, and I can get into my work week. So I'm not sure the rest of committee's perspective, but I really struggle with Sunday night. And I appreciate your scheduling conflicts, but still have to respect the general public in the area.
Absolutely.
Would it be sort of okay to maybe potentially flip that request and do Sunday at 11, finish at 11 sharp or 10:58 sharp? Like I said, we do pre-program the board to shut off automatically, so there's no chance of going over. And then maybe do Friday, Saturday, which is typically in the evening of noise anyway. So Friday, Saturday until 12.
Thumbs up from the mayor.
Okay.
All right, perfect.
Okay, Phil, your hand's still up. Thank you for that, guys. Phil, your hand's still up. Okay, good. Councillor Nishikawa, and then we'll call the vote.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't realize anyone on this council were event organizers, had the expertise of designing this event. I want to share with my fellow councillors that over the years, not just because of last year's event and COVID and all those things, there have been many events at this site, very, very well managed. We will have those neighbors that will continue to complain just because that's what they do. And I'm not being disrespectful to them, but Muskoka is about enjoyment. It's about my big concern, because as you all can tell, I'm getting old. But boy, oh boy, I wish my son can have as much fun that I have had living in Muskoka for the last 30 plus years. And the great thing about Ward A, quite frankly, is that we do have a lot of fun here. And it's not restricted to age groups. All you have to do is to go to a cranberry festival and the beer tent on a Saturday night and see multiple ages dancing together and hoop and hauling and everything else. So I really don't want to degrade this event because in fact, last year was very, very good, well organized, didn't have the noise. I would like to see if, for instance, we have a whole list of noise complaints that happened from previous events, then I would expect that that would have been part of this report, but it isn't at this time. I don't believe that we need to tell these folks to rejig anything, honestly. They've come quite, and by the way, I wish there was more concern about the noise in my own backyard, for instance, that we get on a regular basis in Torrance. So I would please ask council to not ask these people to alter their plans. I think it's great that they're going to use the township's resources, and let's just get back to life here and let things happen. We were a really fun town, and I would like to see that come back. We are not a retirement village yet, please.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your support.
Yeah, it's great. So Councillor Bridgman has a secondary question, and then I'll.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Zavitz. I understand what you're saying, Councillor Nishikawa, but I am agreeing with the mayor here. The 2 nights I don't have an issue with. The Sunday night, extending that an extra hour, I do have an issue with. So I would support Mayor Harding's suggestion that it's Friday and Saturday night that it goes till midnight, and Sunday is 11 p.m.
No problem. Sunday is easier for us to push the schedule earlier because it is Sunday and people are sort of expecting to come earlier in the afternoon. So I think 11 p.m. works perfectly for Sunday to end. And we do want to be respectful of everyone around us. So
But appreciate the kind words.
Yes, thank you for everyone's support.
Okay, good. So generally, we're just going to adapt change the resolution a bit to reflect the Sunday 11, which you seem amenable to, which we as a committee seem to be as well. and the midnight on the Friday and the Saturday night. Okay, so it's going to. I'll just get that resolution from the clerk. Now, just while she's doing that, I wonder, gentlemen, and again, maybe this is through to Corey. So this event is like mid-August, August 12 to 14, correct? Yeah, 12 to 14. We get enough time to get this thing, well, giving these people a resolution today. That is pre our next council meeting to finally approve this at council.
You ask Rob, but just to confirm, they'll only need exemptions on Friday and Saturday then, and they can go till 11 without exemption.
Okay. So there's a couple little things here. We'll have to do some housekeeping. I'm going to ask Rob Kennedy, who's our bylaw enforcement officer. There's Rob. Hey, Rob, thanks for being there. Looking at this noise exemption scenario that you've heard the discussion, Friday, August 12th and Saturday, August 13th would be, we would exempt them from the bylaw. We're not going to indicate a time. We can't indicate a time. 12, and then on Sunday would be 11. Is that within your purview? Is that the proper way to execute this resolution?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Anybody that wants an exemption does have to go to council anyway. So going through this resolution is exactly what we look for. For the Friday and Saturday, it's pretty much a 1 hour exemption, and then Sunday they don't need an exemption if they're going to stop at 11.
Right on. Okay, good. Thank you for that. Okay, so then I'll just ask Corey the one question. Corey, sir, you've obviously, are dealing with it this way. Do we have enough time, or do we look at bringing it to council this afternoon, where we would need a 2/3 majority to accomplish that at that time? Just giving the guys a bit more airspace.
Yeah, certainly. The way it's set up right now, the bylaw and the resolution would come to council August 10th for ratification. The event occurs starts that following Friday. Should it be the desire of committee to pass this forward to council this afternoon, that's certainly an option in front of committee if they will.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. So I'm going to look at committee now and just ask that question. Do we have an appetite? Thumbs up. Could I get a thumbs up that it would come through to council this afternoon on that agenda? Do we have consensus? I mean, I'm for it, Ruth. Okay, Barb. Okay, so good. So that's what will occur. Do we write that in?
It'll still need 2/3 this afternoon.
Yeah, we'll still need 2/3 this afternoon, but yeah, so it doesn't matter. So we'll make that happen. But before we get ahead of ourselves, sorry, Councillor Mazan, go ahead.
That's just a thumb up. I'm trying to figure out how to put my thumb down. Sorry. My electronic thumb.
You did it. Okay, moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that the Shake the Lake event requests for the use of township picnic tables, garbage cans, and road barriers included in staff report CED-2022-24 be approved, and that 3 readings be given to a bylaw to temporarily exempt the Shake the Lake charity event and its participants from noise bylaw 2005-083 on Friday, August 12, 22, and Saturday, August 13, 2022, to allow music until midnight. And lastly, that the Shake the Lake event be designated as municipally significant. All those in favor? Well, that's carried unanimously, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
You got it. Welcome.
Just ask for a seconder for walk-on motions.
Yeah, so if I could just have someone put their hand up as the seconder for the walk-on motion this afternoon. There's Councillor Bridgman. Thank you. Thank you, Barb. Okay, good. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We hope to see everyone there, and we like I said, we'd welcome anyone to come to the event and attend. We're happy to provide passes for whoever needs them, and we can be reached through courier directly on our email if if there's a guest list or anyone that wants to come. We would happy to provide tickets no charge for any of the members or their families.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
No, we can't do that. But yes.
Do we need?
Yeah, some of that we can't do, but hey, sorry for another day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Take care. Okay, committee, we're on item 4E. So do we have a Doug Wilson here? Is he easier? Okay. Okay, good. So then we're gonna go to item 5A now, which is a report from Director Becking, Public Works on the Armstrong Point Road on-street parking issue, which was raised at our last meeting. So Director Becking, welcome, sir, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff have reviewed the situation in accordance with the direction from committee at last month's meeting. And the staff recommendation is that an amendment to the parking bylaw be enacted by council to prohibit parking on both sides of Armstrong Point Road from a point 50 meters north of the intersection with District Road 118 to 400 meters north of the intersection on both sides of the road.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that. Okay, committee, there was some discussion of this last time. I remember Councillor Kelly had some observations, in-person observations, et cetera. Does anyone have any comments on this? I do have a resolution that you can see in the report. I seeing no, oh, there's Councillor Edwards. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. Just wondering with Armstrong Point Road at the church there, with Sunday parking and everything else like that, the congregations get older. They normally park close by for funerals, weddings, and things like that. I just wondered how that will be handled if we just go straight no parking.
Director Becking or Rob Kennedy, I suppose.
Mr. Chairman, the proposed amendment to the bylaw would not affect the current situation in the vicinity of the church.
Okay. Good, thank you. Mayor Harding.
Thank you. As this was coming forward and heard about it a month ago, I'm wondering whether or not I did personally reach out to the owners and management of Turtle Jacks, who I think are really compounding the problem with their staff accommodation down Armstrong Point. Have we noted any difference? Because they were asked to potentially not park on the road. And I'm always reluctant, is there an unintended consequence for the odd resident of Armstrong that occasionally may have to park a vehicle on the road for 1 or 2 days out of 365 days a year may not be as much a problem. Certainly is a problem when it's happening for a full July and August, that no parking or cars parked to excess. Just wondering if we've noted any difference in the last week or so, if there's been a change. We may not have, and maybe we may just want to evaluate this between now and council.
Does anyone know that?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of there having been any change. I've been in the area off and on and haven't seen anything, but there may have been a change. Mr. Kennedy might be better aware of what's going on.
Good. Rob, any thoughts on that?
Through the chair, all I can say is we have not received any further complaints on Armstrong Point Road over the last month. However, that may be due to the fact that we've told the previous complainants that at this time there's really nothing that we can do. So me personally, I've not driven down Armstrong Point Road in the last month, so I'm not sure if vehicles are still on the road or not, but we haven't received any complaints over the last month or so.
Okay. Councillor Kelly.
Excuse me, and through you, maybe because they were calling me. I had 2 calls, one on Sunday, one on Monday, from 2 different complainants. One is the one who actually brought this up, and they were both just following up to make sure that something was being done. They hadn't heard anything, and or said they hadn't heard anything. They just wanted to make sure it was going to get addressed. I didn't ask them whether it was a continuing issue, but I assumed from the phone call that it was.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, I might say, as I did in the Shake the Lake topic as well, because we're in our high season, if you will, at a peak, if you will, is there an urgency to this particular motion that it would be enacted again this afternoon at council, that we would get it in place, in a more expeditious manner. I mean, is this parking right now? This must be a crush time. It must be a problem area. There's the mayor asking if anybody has seen it, noticed a difference. So I think it's important. I just would like you to talk about it. Thank you. Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you. My fear in bringing this to this afternoon is we may end up with another, what I'll call Walker's Point, where we made some changes very quickly, or not quickly. We took some time in a 30-day process. For us to implement this right away might be a bigger issue potentially for us. And again, I talk about unintended consequences. So I'm okay with this waiting 30 days. I appreciate it's the summer. I appreciate it's an issue. I think that certainly conversation with Turtle Jack staff will help alleviate much of the problem. And if they know this is coming, we can probably affect some change very quickly, because they are probably the most guilty at the end of the day, if I may say that.
Do they actually have alternative parking, Mayor? I mean, you seem well versed on this topic. Do they actually have alternative parking instead of Armstrong?
I guess my perspective would be, through you, Mr. Chair, that regardless when this happens, they're going to have to find alternative parking. So they would be able to park potentially at the restaurant and walk back there. There's other parking within Port Carling. So regardless of when this happens or not, they can do it voluntarily, or they can do it by bylaw. But I just like the process of 30 days, especially when we implement significant change.
So you're okay with the bylaw, just the timing is fine in your mind. Good, thank you. Okay, Councillor Nishikawa, then Councillor Kelly, and then we'll call it a vote.
Thank you. I actually do believe that, this conversation started 30 days ago. It's not brand new. And I actually do believe that we could be moving this forward later this afternoon. Again, trying to put something in place for September, essentially, is what we're looking at when we know Port Carling shuts its doors in Labor Day. So I'm not quite, I don't have an issue with us moving this forward. And if we hadn't had this conversation at General Finance last month, then that might be a different conversation. But I don't have a problem moving this forward today. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Through you, I would very much like to move this forward. This is definitely a seasonal thing, and it's not a matter of of aesthetics. This is, I think, a very dangerous situation. You read the staff report. Sightlines are horrible. Shoulders are narrow. The width of the road itself is quite narrow. And I can tell you, I did have a conversation with somebody who was parking on there, who was staying at the cabins, and asked why they didn't park on the cabin property. And they said, because the first one in has to move all the cars to get out. So this is just a convenience, I think, for them. I do believe there's enough parking, or there's certainly a fair amount of parking. Whether there's enough for all the cars, I have no idea. But if we wait another month, we've lost this year. It'll be more effective. It'll be effective next year. But the problem for sightlines, the problem really is coming up behind this long line of parked cars and having to get into the oncoming lane to get around them. The sight lines are really not very healthy. I'd like to see it move this afternoon if we could.
Okay, Mayor, I will give you the last word, and then we're going to call the vote.
Thank you. I guess it goes to my comment of, has it improved over the last couple of weeks? And as this meeting's going on, we have some Township Muskoka Lake staff who just emailed myself, who live on Armstrong Point Road. And their response is, the car parking has improved within the last week or two. I live on Armstrong Point. So we have already affected change just by implementing that. And hence my reason for, again, following process, not to be challenged. Our council meetings early August. And so if we've already affected some change, just by this discussion, I think is appropriate, but I'm obviously at the will of council this afternoon.
Councillor Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. I would like to move this forward now. I'm not sure I understand what 30 days is going to do for us. And I think ongoing, it's going to be an issue. And I too am worried about the safety part of it. So I'd like to see it move forward this afternoon.
Okay, then I'll ask the question of you as a group. Do we have a general consensus that we'd like to see this move to council this afternoon? Okay, there's enough. Is that enough? Oh, wait, no. So if everybody could just show of hands again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6. So I need a mover and a seconder for this afternoon for this motion. So Barb Bridgman there, Councillor Bridgman, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Kelly. There you go. Thank you, everyone. Okay, moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the parking bylaw 2022-43 be amended to prohibit on-street parking on Armstrong Point Road from its intersection with DMM Road 118 to a point 400 meters north of the intersection on both sides of the road. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. That's carried. Okay. Another report, item 5B, Director Becking, Public Works on Whitings Beach and Lawrence Pitt Road parking lot, a bylaw to restrict storage of vehicles on public lands. Thank you. Go ahead, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, staff have frequently received complaints about the abandonment of all manner of items, trailers, boats, other items of personal property at the Whitings Beach parking lot. Traditionally, I understand that we have gone in and in the fall typically and removed these quote unquote abandoned items at township expense. That said, the situation continues. We continue to receive complaints. The parking lot is used for what I'll call seasonal storage of boats, trailers, and all manner of other personal items. And it's drawing upon the capacity of the parking lot to absorb recreational users. You may recall that when council dealt with the issue of parking on Curry Street in Bala, one of the solutions that was identified and promoted was that recreational users were redirected to this same parking lot in order to ease the situation over on Curry Street. More recently, you'll recall that council approved the opening up of the Lawrence Pit for parking in order to service the island residents at the Skeleton Lake in light of the difficulties that have been experienced up there. Although we've had no complaints that I'm aware of to date with respect to the Lawrence Pit, the potential and the experience has been that these less frequently monitored public properties frequently become a dumping ground for items that are no longer wanted by the public. The current parking bylaw does not have specific references with respect to these properties, these two properties in particular. And for that reason, the bylaw enforcement staff are unable to address the issue. If council, committee and council are so inclined, it would be staff recommendation that that the bylaw be amended to include these two locations, and that further staff be authorized to, subject to due process of law, remove abandoned items at their discretion after proper ticketing and placarding. Staff would also recommend that we take the additional step of putting signage at the entrance to both of these properties to make it extremely clear to users what is and is not permitted, and give them full warning that failure to comply will result in the loss of their personal items.
Here, excellent report, sir. Thank you for bringing this forward. Certainly tools for the toolbox for our bylaw and our public works people. We've got to keep these lots open, and we have very few of them, and it's a problem. It's going to be a bigger problem if we don't deal with it, I would suggest. So Councillor Nishikawa, then Councillor Hayes, and I'll call the vote.
Thank you. I'm a bit concerned about Whiting's speech. And as one of the councillors that brought Whiting's Beach forward to open up this parking area, we were addressing Bala Park Islanders, who I will say we recognized as a significant group of taxpayers on our lake, a very significant group of taxpayers. And in fact, it was, we've seen some use of that facility in a negative way. But what we had put in place, and it's unfortunate because we as councillors don't always get to see the language when we pass things as it goes down the line. So people had the ability to park their boat trailers there for the season, not for 72 hours. So again, this is Bala Park Islanders primarily is who we created this parking lot for, or any islanders, honestly, but they could leave their boat trailers there. And that was historically what was being done. There have been some other people that have left old boats and things like that recently, I would say, but it worked very, very well for a number of years. I would be really, I'd be beyond disappointed that in fact, what our purpose was is now being changed to those folks that have to come and move that trailer every 72 hours.
Yeah.
To put it back. Like it doesn't make any sense to me.
Let's talk about that to Rob Kennedy here and Director Becking. I think the key word may be license, but that is also problematic because, of course, the items we're specifically talking about are unlicensed, abandoned garbage that weighs 5,000 pounds times quite a few. And it's incumbent then on the township to move it. I know the same islanders you do, Councillor Nishikawa, in terms of they park their trailers there, they have a license on them, and they park them way off back in the bush. That, as I understand it, that is not what we're talking about, but it is a difficult issue to discern one from the other. So I might ask our two gentlemen, staff members, to tell us how they might embark on a solution to that, I guess with language, right? The point being, how do we let islanders who have a trailer park there because their boats on the island taking them back and forth, how do we let them keep their trailer there licensed while people are abandoning trailers and scraping their numbers, serial numbers off and leaving them there for us to take away? There's a very different type of challenge there.
If I can dive in here, Mr. Chairman, the only way that I could see something like that working is through some kind of a licensing process. Frankly, we don't have the resources presently to deal with such a situation. Frankly, this is time limited parking. This is not for somebody to park their trailer there for the season. That's at least that's my understanding of the situation.
Yep. Okay. If we pass this bylaw today, it goes to council next month. Is there more discussion on it then? And I guess there is. So I'm almost wondering if, yeah, okay. I'm just talking out loud. Sorry about that. Okay, listen, Councillor Hayes, you go ahead.
Thank you. And through you, I would not put this forward to council. This is where we do the heavy lifting. This is where we make the decision. This is where we make the recommendations. This has traditionally been where these islanders park their trailers and their cars. And they're going off to their island for a week, not 72 hours. So they would not be coming back and forth to move their car to another spot. This has been going on for many, many years, and to change it as such would be probably more reactive than it was at Walker's Point. I think if the solution is to not have abandoned vehicles, a 72-hour ban on parking is only going to let you know that these vehicles have been abandoned within 72 hours. I think a better approach would be to say no unlicensed trailers or vehicles of any sort. Everything has to be licensed so that you can trace it back who it's for, and state that the trailers are to be parked at the back away from the parking spaces to allow for developers.
So you're suggesting current license? The language would read current licensing.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Rob, does that give you any tools?
Through the chair, in my experience with parking and trailer plates in general, trailer plates are valid for 25 years. So in my experience, anytime I've run a trailer plate, I would say 90% of the time that trailer doesn't actually go back to the owner of the trailer at the time. It's from a guy that owned the trailer three owners before the current one now. So it's a little bit difficult if we say that only unlicensed trailers are going to be actioned on that, because anybody can just throw a license plate on a trailer and it's good for 25 years. And, we still have the same issue that we do. And, I think the intent here is for those abandoned vehicles and boats. Like, we have boats that aren't even on trailers that are just dumped there. It's quite clear that they're never, ever going to be used. That's kind of the intent of what we're looking for here. This is more of a discretionary thing, if you will, for officers. If we get a complaint and we go in and we can clearly see that it's been abandoned, 2 flat tires, looks like it's been there quite a long time. It's pretty easy to see when they're weathered. That's where we would action this. If it's just a regular trailer, we're probably not going to do much about it other than put a placard on it and say, hey, you need to remove this within 72 hours. We did that last fall with all the trailers and vehicles that were in that lot, and a majority of them did leave the lot before the 72 hours. So, the people that do see those are removed. The ones that were taken by the township, again, were boats that were just dumped there that are clearly identifiable that they've been abandoned. We are not able to run hull numbers either. Transport Canada will not provide ownership on hull numbers. They won't even provide ownership to hull numbers to the police anymore. So that's a dead end as well. But again, the intent here is for the abandoned trailers, vehicles, boats only. It's not for the people that are parking there for a week. We don't get complaints throughout the summertime. It's the fall time when people go home and they just leave an old trailer there that they don't want to use anymore because they bought one over the summertime that they've taken their boat back home with. And then they just dump the trailer there and expect the township to remove it at taxpayers' cost.
As we're dipping our toe in this hot water, if we added the word unlicensed abandoned items, does that help at all? Because I certainly don't want, and I was well aware of the last fall, the people that move the trailers are the people that have licensed trailers that use them year in, year out. The people that Councillor Nishikawa are talking about, they're not our problem. They're not what I want to help you with. Rob, I want you to help you with the oil tank, 2 oil tanks that are dropped there on the ground, the trailer, the motorhome that's abandoned, the Titanic that's sitting there. It's garbage. It's a dump. And this is Muskoka, so we have to do a better job. So I'd like to see a way for us to give you, if it helps, to use the word unlicensed abandoned items at these 2 very specific places. You've just said you're not going to remove a Glastron tandem boat trailer with a license on it. I get it. Mayor?
Thank you. I guess the question I have to ask is, are we in the business of providing trailer storage during the summer months for property owners? If we are, I've got a couple trailers. I might want to move off my property and park them on the beach over there. And I agree with Mr. Kennedy. License plates are irrelevant. You know, many trailers, 90% of the trailers I'm going to say out there have some random license plate stuck on them so that they would look like their license. The license plate doesn't match the VIN number of the trailer, may be registered to the owner, may not be registered to the owner. It is a huge issue for MTO. In my lifetime, I never knew a trailer license plate even expired. I've got a lot of trailer license plates much older than 25 years old, so I might want to double check my own. So I think the 72 hours might be a little bit, you know, if someone was coming up for 7 days at a friend's property, I don't mind that, but I certainly love we're ticketing your vehicle or your trailer. It's going to be removed within a certain period of time because we're not in the storage business. And I think that's the most appropriate method for it. If it's 72, if it's a week, whatever that number is, but we start to need to clean up these because I don't believe we're in the storage business on public lands.
Okay, Councillor Bergeron.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. Just a question is, I guess, probably to Mr. Becking or Mr. Kennedy. Is this the only place we're having this kind of issue, and it's really expensive to move them out? Is there, and the technology side of this, is there a possibility in this one place to put in some sort of a camera so we can see who's dropping them and have a trail back to it? It's got to be less expensive than having to move these things. Can we do it by satellite or whatever? It's just a question of, can we somehow manage who's really abusing this and get back to them? And I'm not sure who that goes to.
I think I can probably answer that, Mr. Chairman. The technology exists. I think you would be surprised at the cost. We're not talking $100. We're not talking $1,000. I have had experience with remote cameras in other circumstances. 3,000 to 5,000 is sort of the starting price, and we can move a hell of a lot of steel for that kind of money on an annual basis. Yes, if you wish to identify the perpetrators of these and tie these infractions to an individual, you know, there's a cost associated with the principal. But the most expedient way is, as I've indicated, to grant staff the authority to remove them where due process or due notice has been given, and allow us to address the situation. One suggestion I could make, and picking up on, I believe it was the mayor's suggestion, if the length of time is an issue, then you could consider an amendment to the time. 72 hours was selected by me simply because that's the time frame that is used in other locations. If you choose to adopt a different time frame in order to address specific circumstances, that's well within committee and council's prerogative.
Okay. Might I ask if your transportation master plan will be contemplating this as an aspect of launches and parking generally for islanders?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is an element of the TMP. More from a need for perspective rather than from a regulatory perspective. The consultant is mandated to address the issue of, you know, how many parking lots do we require? 1, 3, 5, 7, 10, whatever. How that gets regulated is entirely up to committee and council.
For discussion, right on. Okay, Councillor Hayes.
Thank you. I still don't understand how having a limit on the time that we allow people to park is going to stop people from abandoning their apparatus, their vehicles, their boats, their trailers, their oil drums. I don't understand how parking has to do, people legally parking has to do with people illegally dumping on township property. And I think that's the issue that we should be looking at, and not the parking issue.
Right. Good thought. Do you have a comment on that, Director Becking?
Well, I think the councillor makes an excellent point. As I've said to many of you over the years, my grandfather was a lawyer and a judge, and he always said that a lock only kept an honest man out. If somebody's intent on breaking the rules, they will do it regardless of what you do. What it does, however, is it manages the situation so that the space is available for the use of others. And I guess that's where I would draw a distinction. But you're correct. Parking restrictions are not going to prevent somebody from walking away from a trailer or a boat or a whatever.
Yeah.
That having been said, staff require the authority to deal with that situation, and that authority does not presently exist in any bylaw. It's been done informally.
Okay.
May I have a follow-up?
Go ahead.
Chair?
Sure.
Would it be possible to request that any trailers that are left on municipal land have current contact information on them? And if they do not, then they would be subject to being removed after 7 days.
Mr. Kennedy?
Through the chair, if I could make a suggestion on that, it would be a little bit more on the administrative side, but there could be a suggestion where we have something in the bylaw, kind of going back to a permitting system, if you will, where if someone wants to leave their trailer at that said lot, that they have to contact the municipality with the information of the trailer with their contact information. And we have essentially just a spreadsheet or a list of those people, and it doesn't have to cost anything. It's just more of a list that we would have, so that if we had an issue, we could contact those people in due time. And if there's trailers that are in there that aren't on our list, then they would be in violation of whatever the bylaw would say.
Okay, here we are in the middle of summer and we're adding administration. I think just to sort of summarize, this is a very localized, isolated situation, it would seem. And it does affect other people's parking opportunities on long weekends, et cetera. But, I'm wondering, as I'm going to read this resolution, that you should all think long and hard about it. I do like the idea that personally, that the Transportation Master Plan can embrace this in a whole different manner. And to Councillor Hayes' point, it can be more of it's a different issue than parking. It's abandonment of things. Yeah, so I'm gonna ask, okay, because we're going this all day, because I mean there isn't an answer. There really isn't a fulsome answer, and I don't think we should be looking to tag a solution here and now that we may end up having more trouble with than not to solving the problem. So, Councillor Edwards.
Yes, I think we should give this a little bit more thought, and that I think the licensing agreement for trailer parking is, and that could be implemented, and there should be a charge for it. If I leave a trailer down at Parker's and I have it there, I pay so much a month. It's the same thing, and that. And as far as people abandoning it, maybe we should have a thing where there's a hefty fine if they're caught abandoning it. It might get some people to actually get rid of it responsibly. And as far as bringing this forward today, I have a little bit of problem with it. I think 72 hours is a little tight. If you have an island cottage and that guests up, you'd have to bring them over. And if their cars move 20 feet, does that start over again or what? So I think we should wait. If we pass this today, it wouldn't come to council till next month anyway. So this year's lost anyway. So I think we should give it a little more thought. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks you. Councillor Roberts, then Councillor Bridgman, then I'll call the vote.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I think before the vote, Director Becking saying right now he does not have the authority to remove abandoned items. And I think that our resolution should at least include that. So at their discretion, they can remove what is truly deemed an abandoned item in their opinion. So I'd like that added to the resolution, please.
Okay, can I ask, let me just ask Councillor, or let me ask Director Becking, is that feasible? Is that viable?
Yes, we would simply amend the draft bylaw that's before you to exclude the limitations on parking, but retain the direction with respect to the removal. And I would also recommend that we put up signage at the entrance to both locations so that users clearly understand and know that what the expectations are.
Okay.
And
hey, Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, so you guess we'll follow through in that then. Second point I have is I understand this is a historical usage within Whiting Beach. I would not want to see this happen on the Leonard Lake Landing. It's very small. If a trailer gets parked there, then the people that have been parking their cars, which maybe they shouldn't be doing, but they've been done for decades. This is if within 72 hours, I'd want any trailer on the Leonard Lake landing removed, and the current islanders are responsible with the trailers.
Okay, Councillor Mazan.
Thank you. It's for you. I like how Councillor Hayes separated the two issues. I think one of it is just removing items, and I look to staff to help guide us on how we can effectively support them to help them remove items from our particularly visible locations and close to the water side. I would agree if there's oil drums. I haven't seen these personally, but those types of things shouldn't be in our space. The second piece is about parking, and I've been listening closely and, have had many conversations with a lot of different islanders throughout, particularly Lake Muskoka, but also a lot of our small lakes as well. I just feel like when we are contemplating this in the transportation master plan, the one thing I would urge is that we are being consistent, because it makes it very difficult to have conversations with people to say, well, we are doing one thing here, but we're doing something different over here. So whether it relates to what our role is or the timing, I don't believe that's going to be something we solve today in this particular location, but I do think we have to consider these things in our transportation master plan and or what the future policies will be as it relates to that. So that's more just a comment, not specific to this location. So anyways, I look to staff, I guess specifically with the dumping of the items, I would like to support the Ward 8 councillors who are concerned with trying to get these items removed. Is there a way forward to do that?
Good question. Thank you. So Director Becking, is there a different language, or does it have to be tucked in under the parking bylaw as opposed to some other notion that the abandonment of waste? Do we cover that off anywhere else in our public bylaws? You know where I'm going with that?
I would think, Mr. Chairman, that we would have to come back to you with an amended bylaw.
Yeah.
And so perhaps rather than force the issue through at the present time, perhaps I could take the feedback from committee that I've heard today, come back to you with an amended bylaw. Granted, there will be a delay, but typically we have not traditionally dealt with this issue until the fall anyway. So another month, frankly, is not going to be a major deal for us.
Good,
But
thank
I
you
would
for
like
that.
to see it, I would like to see it addressed before the end of this year.
Agreed, agreed. Enlightening, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa, are you okay with what Director Becking just said? And we're going to probably just ask if we want to defer this. So you go ahead.
I just wanted to respond to the thought that I had at the moment, and mostly what I was hearing was more of a concern. And I would say I'm also part of this because it's been many years since I've been to the Lawrence Pit, but not having any photos. So I'm suspecting that some councillors aren't aware that the Whiting's Beach parking area is not at the shore. Like that's why we chose this particular location next to, or Smith's Pit, more or less. But it's not at the shore, and so I wouldn't want it to be treated like every other landing that we have, because it isn't. It's much more unique than that. But I would also request that going forward, at any time that we're having these types of presentations, to please supply pictures. Because to sort of say, well, we want to do the same thing that we do everywhere, nothing about us is the same everywhere, so I don't believe that we should be looking at things in a very broad picture. The reason why things happen specifically is because it was a specific need addressed, and hopefully we'll respect those decisions that previous councils had made, and I would say other councils moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I see, Rob, you have your camera on. Are you want a final comment? I'm going to ask the committee what their thoughts are here. Go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, just to at least advise everybody through the new bylaw that Director Becking put forward early 2022, the public lands bylaw. We do have essentially a littering section in that bylaw. It doesn't necessarily say vehicles, it just says garbage, but we don't define that. But I think the bottom line here is that at this point, we don't have any authority to actually remove things in either bylaw. So I think that's what should have to come forward at bare minimum for us to really do anything here.
Okay, good. And so given that, and given what you've just said and what Director Becking has said, would it be wise of us to look down the road 30 days for that more fulsome report contemplating either bylaw and a more specific response? Committee, would I look to you to defer that? Okay, so thumbs up. Okay, we're going to defer this motion. And that's that. Thank you very much for that report, Director Becking, and we look forward to next month with continuing on in that discussion. Okay, well, thanks for that, both of you. I'm going to move on to Chriselle Story, our Land and Agreements Coordinator. She's got a license agreement application for Lehman, Roll 6-24-034. You have the floor, Chriselle.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, committee. The townships received a license agreement application for an encroachment of a septic bed on a township road allowance, and I will turn it back to the chair.
Thanks, Chriselle. Any comments, committee? Okay, seeing none. Okay, moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that license agreement application LA/08/22 Lehman be approved subject to the following conditions: that a draft numbered reference plan of survey be prepared and provided to the clerk for review within 1 year of the date of the conditional approval. 2, that the township be in receipt of the following from the acting solicitor: confirmation of a title search that the applicant is the owner of abutting land and that the encroachment is located on township land. And 2, a draft license agreement to the satisfaction of the township. 3, that the applicant provides proof of liability insurance covering the encroachments in the minimum amount of $2 million with the township named as additional insured. And 4, payment of any applicable fees related to the preparation of the license agreement, including but not limited to the solicitor's time and disbursements, as well as confirmation applicable property taxes have been paid up to date. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, there we go. Thank you, committee. Okay, Chriselle, you've got a second one here, original road allowance and land exchange, Wilson Raponi, roll number 4-17-077. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. The Township's received an application for a sale of a portion of Township road allowance and land swap. The applicant is here today if there are any questions, and I will turn it back to the Chair.
Okay, committee, there we go. Thank you for that, Chriselle. Committee, there we go. Councillor Hayes, go ahead.
Thank you, through you. If you look on the picture on page 33 of our agenda, the question is for Director Becking. We're swapping out the land below for the land above because this private, well, it's a township road, but it's not assumed, is actually not on our land. However, down at the very bottom of the picture, you can see that the land that we are swapping comes very close to the road. And if Mr. Becking is comfortable with that, I am comfortable with that.
Good, thank you. Director Becking, do you have a thought on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'll bear with me, I just wanted to make pull up the report so that I'm
Let me ask Chriselle while you're looking up that resource. Chriselle, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, through you, just to help Director Becking out, he had no concerns with this proposal. This is located on Sagamo Boulevard, and the issue is the applicant has a septic bed that's on the township road allowance. We wouldn't normally sell the township road allowance in this circumstance because other property owners would be deprived access. So in turn of this, the property owner across the road is willing to give the township a portion of land that the traveled portion of road is crossing over. So upon this exchange and transaction, the township would give the applicant the portion of road his septic is on, and in exchange, we would dedicate that portion of land as part of the road allowance. So it would still be 66 feet wide and access would not be an issue.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Stories is correct. I recall this application. It's actually quite old. It's been over a year since I looked at it. Yes, we're trying to find an expedient way to correct an oversight that is many years in the making. It's a reasonable solution. At the end of the day, the public interest is protected. Staff have no concerns.
Good, thank you for that.
Certainly from my perspective.
Good. Okay. So do we have someone online, but there is no comment. No one is looking for any comment from the public? No? Okay, good. Okay. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Bridgman. Be it resolved that road allowance and land exchange application ORA 0522 Wilson Raponi be approved, subject to the following conditions. One, that the township forward correspondence to the abutting landowner of the portion township road allowance and a portion of land to be conveyed to the township and dedicated as part of the public road allowance roll number 4-17-066, requesting either confirmation of participation in the transaction or a waiver of interest. Should the township not receive a response by the specified deadline, the failure to respond will be treated as a waiver of interest. Two, upon confirmation of waiver of interest from the landowner of roll number 4-17-066, a corresponding draft numbered reference plan of survey shall be prepared and provided to the clerk for review within 1 year of the date of this conditional approval. Three, that the existing tarp sheds encroaching on the traveled portion of the township's road allowance be removed and relocated to the applicant's property and, if applicable, brought into compliance with the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14. And four, that the township be in receipt of the following from the acting solicitor. One, confirmation that public notice of the proposed disposition was published pursuant to township policy C-LS-06. Two, confirmation that the District of Muskoka and other applicable agencies have no concerns with the proposed disposition. And that three, a road closing bylaw, a declaration of surplus resolution, and any related necessary documentation to effect the disposition. Four, a bylaw to dedicate the portion of lands as part of the public road allowance and any related necessary documentation to effect the acquisition of land. Five, payment of any applicable fees for the land costs, solicitor's time and disbursements, as well as confirmation of applicable property taxes have been paid up to date. And 6, that staff be delegated authority to approve the configuration and location of the lands to be acquired in exchange for the portion of township road allowance lying between lots 66 and 67, Plan 32 and Concession 12, Part Lot 35, Medora. Well, all those in favor? That's great. Thank you. Carried, unanimous. Why we don't have a lot of those? Oh, okay, that's a different one there. Okay, so thank you, Chriselle, for your commentary and appreciate it. We've got moving on now to item 7A. We're receiving the minutes of the library board meeting held on May 10th, 2022, and a CEO report. Thank you for your good work. Accept those into the public record. We've already done the fire master plan. Item 8A, 8B, we're good. Unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business, committee? Okay, seeing none. Under new business, we certainly have our municipality updates. Is there any other new business before I ask of our 3 members to report to us? Okay, so I guess Mayor Harding, go ahead.
Thank you very much. We met on June 22nd. Not a very exciting meeting to discuss some Port Carling walk fees. Awarded a contract for open grade paving on Muskoka Road 13, which will be of interest from 9 Mile Lake Road to Jimwood Lane. That's moving forward. Fixing a sewage pumping station in Gravenhurst. And then we have also looked at some updating in our engineering and public works user fees for the 2023 year. And that's all we discussed this month.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ishikawa.
Thank you. Again, at Health Services, our ongoing conversations revolve around Fairview, the new long-term care facility, and the financing that goes at it. It actually just changed into ownership of the district. Frank knows all of the numbers, but there's nothing we much can do except follow the prescribed program. Also, I wanted to actually just take a moment at this time because I think it's an important thing to bring forward. If anyone has an opportunity to attend an event at the high school period in Muskoka Lakes, your eyes would be very open, at least I was, by first of all, the number of students that we actually have. So I was at a graduation with 150 students in Bracebridge High School. And it really opened my eye up that we have a lot of life out there that we as a council should be considering as well. There was some great scholarships handed out, or no, I don't want to say bursaries would be the better term. But more importantly, what I learned was how much our local youth need assistance, and that assistance isn't necessarily out there, certainly from a bursary perspective. And again, I would really suggest that if you have an opportunity to, just hang out. I really had been out of touch, I would say, since COVID, to really having a full understanding of how many young people are actually in our community. I know we've had a lot of babies in Ward 8, but I would really say that was a bigger education piece for me as a counselor to know what I'm doing going forward. So again, let's not just deal with our one-offs and property owners and things like that, but actually realize the up and coming people that will be taking over this municipality. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Edwards, thank you for that. Councillor Edwards, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Zavitz. I'll be fairly brief. We had a presentation by Janet O'Connell, the Executive Director of Muskoka Tourism and Marketing Agency. And they informed us that they're closing the tourist information booth on Highway 11. Seemingly, there's only about 13,000 people go through there a year. And most of them are just using the washroom, so they don't figure it's worth it. They're moving to the airport, closing that, and everything will be online. And it's sort of a shame in a way because, you know, I have a piece here that says the environment is our economy, and tourists spend $500 million in the area, and yet they can't keep an information booth open so that people can either go in, take a break and that, but this is it. And I just did get an email the other day that the executive director is no longer with them. So I don't know what that is, but anyway, that's the one. The next thing is a new generation 911 authority service agreement we're signing with Bell. And we should get better service. They're hoping to even be able to trace cell phones now and that with it. So this is an improvement. We had a statutory meeting for the town of Bracebridge. We also had Nick McDonald on the Manette District Council official plan presentation, and that which we're all well aware of here. And there were just some other extensions in, let's see, there's one in Huntsville, one in Bracebridge, another one in Bracebridge. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaglowitz is unavailable today, so that's our reports from the district. Thank you all. Item 10B, community events update. Anyone? There's Councillor Hayes, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll be quick. July 16th at 8 a.m., the Friends of the Port Carling Library opens their bidding on their annual summer online silent auction. Some great things to bid on there, so please take part in it. From noon to 3 p.m. on July 16th, the Walker's Point Library has its annual community summer celebration, library tours, information. The fire department will be taking part in it with information and I believe a barbecue. There will be paramedics present, I think, and there will also be, of course, cupcakes. And from 1 to 4 on the same day, on July 16th, the Clear Lake Brewery Company is hosting Adopt a Home fundraiser. And there will also be a silent auction there. They're asking for donations at the door. There are no tickets. And there will also be a band there. So if you can get it out to either or all of those events, that would just be great.
Excellent. See you Saturday. Excellent. Anyone else? Councillor Mazan, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. I'm not sure this falls under community events necessarily, but I just wanted to extend a thank you. I was not part of the conversations last month on the Raymond Hall Wi-Fi, but that is something that staff has been working on with me for quite a while. I just wanted to follow up and let you know that it has been installed, and we have a very grateful community, particularly the photography club, that they actually have access to Wi-Fi in that hall. Long time coming, years in the making, and there's a lot of gratitude. So I just wanted to personally say thank you to committee for your support last month. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, Councillor Edwards, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I have 3 things. This Friday night, the second Friday of every month, Songs and Strings are at the Raymond Community Center from 7 till 9. You can come and listen to music, or if you play, you're welcome to come for that. Every Friday in July, and if it works out good, it may even go into August, the Windermere and District Lions are having a hamburger barbecue down at the wharf at in Windermere from 11:30 till 2. And that, so come on and support the Lions. They've also mentioned, I don't have all the details on it, but on July the 30th, the Windermere District Lions Club are holding an event in the Bala Community Center from 2, I believe it's till 11 o'clock. There's different bands and music and food and everything else like that there. So it's a fundraiser. You're more than welcome to come out. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anyone else? As it relates to community events? No? Good. It's going to be a busy summer, certainly a busy weekend. Thanks for that, Councillor Hayes, all your updates. Item 11 on our agenda, general information and correspondence. You see them there, A through G. Not seeing any comments or hands up on anything there. We don't have closed session. I will move to adjournment. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 11:46 a.m. And the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, August the 10th, 2022 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically from the Council Chambers Municipal Office in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor? Good, thank you. Okay, enjoy your lunch. We'll see you at 1 o'clock. Thank you.